The look of Undisputed Truth back then with the, you guys got into the wild wigs and the paint and all that, and also some of the sound. I think there's no one that sounded as much like Funkadelic as Undisputed Truth. So talk about the look, the concept of that, and also the great band that you guys had.
Okay. I mean, concept and band. Well, let me go get these guys in the band, because I mean, we just went into the Hall of Fame a couple of years ago, Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame, and when the guy was talking to me about the names for the people, I put every name of everybody that went out with me and spent time with us and recorded with us. He said, "No, the group." I said, "I didn't do this by myself." And my music, my musicians that were with Undisputed Truth are all prominent to me. But I mean, I can start naming folks like Melvin Wawa Watson, Ricky Lawson, Melvin Stewart. I could name. I mean, all these guys. A lot of these guys were inducted into the Hall of Fame with me, and a lot of the other groups, they looked and they felt, "Man, why you bring us?" I say, because I mean, look, I don't fall out with people, and then don't give them their due. You take this person out of this didn't happen, and I couldn't be here right now. So I shared with everybody. And just like when we're talking today, it's an equal situation, because it can't be anything unless the folks that are here unless we're doing it together and making it work.
Why was there so much changeover in the other singers?
Personnel problems. One thing that when we put the very first group of people that I used were a group called the Magic Tones. We had a girl. They were actually, the Magic Tones were some stablemates with me from my D-Town era with the Peps. But at that time it was an all-male group. When we got to Detroit, they did some background for the Temptations for Norman before. And sometimes you hear backgrounds and you think that's the Temps. It may be some other folks. And let's say, for instance, if Richard, Paul, and Eddie or David were singing, they would put their voices on their track, their background parts on the track with their voices, but their voices would be morphed in with those other folks that Norman was using, because he didn't have all the Temptations. Just like I went to a session with the Four Tops, and my girls were there with Duke and Lena. All the Four Tops weren't there. Seal Waters Run Deep was one of those songs, where all of them were there. And I mean, that was the old Motown thing. A lot of the songs other folks did the backgrounds to them. We sang on all our things. We never did a session that was kept in the can.
And at one point, you even had Chaka Khan's sister, right? She was, Taka Boom was on You Plus Me.
That was why you saw the different concepts, because I mean, that original concept was because everything was because of the personnel, and in those days, everything was about your latest CD or album. So we can always go back and pick and choose some of the Smiling Faces was going to always be there, and Papa Was a Rolling Stone was going to always be there. So we would pick and choose the songs from the past and feature all the things in the album with the new people that we were doing then. So we made a few changes, because their first group came as a group. When they split up, with the problems that they were having amongst themselves, two of the guys stayed with me, and we got Shaka Khan. And that became that Cosmic Truth. That's when we went into the other look. That was that. Instead of just coming out with another group, we changed the whole concept and the look all at the same time, which was, money-wise, was one of the biggest concepts that I've ever had. Made more money doing that than any of the other concepts. I was during the time of Kiss, and we were supposed to do a thing in LA at the the club on Santa Monica. I can't remember, senior moment.
Santa Monica Civic?
No, right on Santa Monica and Laurel Canyon, Crescent Heights.
Okay.
You go around the curve. The donut place is across the street, and the shoe store. And there's a great big club that looked like it's encased with a big wall around it. I'm trying to think of the name it used to be called, because I'm just having a senior moment. You know, I've been doing this over 57 years. So I mean, and then I was thinking about somebody was mentioning some clubs and things. I mean, with South Carolina, I was like, the Ghana's? You played there? I was like, oh yeah, many times. You know, I said James Brown came in there. That's where we ran into James Brown. We had knew him from the Ohio Untouchables playing behind him a couple of times in and around Dayton, and so we had met him at Robert Ward's house. But he came to this club we were playing in and wanted us to be the Flames for some dates he had. We couldn't get out of the dates, and then we talked about it. We didn't want to do that, you know, because he promised us maybe this could be permanent if y'all work out. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be in no situation where I'm coming in and somebody going out for whatever reason. You know, I didn't want to. First of all, I didn't want that vibe, and that wasn't what we were trying to do. You know, because I asked him, I said, well, what about Bobby Bird? Bobby Bird gonna be with me forever. And I was like, I was down with that. I love Bobby Bird, you know. But then there's other guys you never knew who they were in the Flames, you know. And I didn't want to just be a prop, you know. And
all right, so you guys played this club in Hollywood area.
It's almost coming to me. Yeah, but okay, we played this club in
We don't need the name. You just can tell the story.
We had so many people. People were sitting out from the front of the club all the way around the corner going up Crescent Heights, just off of Santa Monica. They sat there all, you know how they do. They sat there all night to get in that club that next night. I mean, they was there all night. And me and Norman was riding down there. He was like, look like y'all might. And that's when we was wearing those wigs and things. When we first came out with those wigs, Eddie Kendricks was playing at the club over there in Crenshaw. And we were going to that club. This was the first time people seen us outside the record or the album with that makeup and stuff on. And we got out the car at the liquor store parking lot right there behind on Stalker and Crenshaw, and walked to the Total Experience from there in makeup. Just just 8:30, something before while people getting ready to go out, and you police stopped us twice before we got there. So y'all messing up there. The traffic is jammed up there. People didn't know. And we went on in that club. We came in the club. I mean, and Eddie Kendricks came out on the stage, and when they called him out there, he was like, he said, I seen y'all. He said, but he didn't know who we were. It's the first time we were in makeup. And it had such an impact. I mean, that this is with Taka. This was before Taka. We had such an impact that every time we performed, people came to see us in that garb. Our whole demographic changed. It was mostly white. Well, you know how California is. I mean, this was their club. And then when we went into the Troubadour with Junior Walker, I mean, that was it. I mean, we got over in the Troubadour. That was it for us. You know, I was like, wow. A lot of money. A lot. I mean, the most successful year that we had was with the Jackson 5. We traveled with the Jackson 5 for that summer 72 tour, 90 days. I mean, that was, I don't even want to say it. It was ungodly. I mean, but that was, I have a hard time trying, I don't even have to think hard for trying to find anything that topped those 90 days with the Jackson 5 at that particular time. Joe Jackson, I don't know, you know, what nobody said, but that guy, I mean, what he did and how he had that group together and that tight, you know, people would think that, you know, Michael and his talent, but Michael was always inquisitive. I mean, even after he got big, he would call me and my partner and we would talk. He'd ask me about a lot of folks and a lot of things and stuff in the business. And he'd tell me why he asked. And he said, you know, when we was traveling together, he used to sit in the hotel's room and we sit him and Randy. This was Randy's first year out and talk all the, you know, and then they go out on the road, we'd go out. And that was the only time we'd get a chance to really be with them, because other than that, they were always surrounded with security. You know, so when we're in the hotel room, we're all on the same floor, or two adjoining floors, you know, we get a chance to mix and mingle and talk. And whoa, what a wonderful world show business is when it's right. You know, when everything is right. I mean, before we started touring with the Jackson 5, Norman and I went to 2 shows that the Jackson 5 did. And both of the shows at that time, when whoever opened for them, the people in the audience would be saying all the while they're on the stage, "We want the Jackson 5. We want the." I was like, Lord, have mercy. Norman said, "Can you handle that?" He said, "This is what you fix. Can you handle that?" I was like, okay, I had to think. I had to figure out what was going to be our hook opening for the Jackson 5. I wasn't going to try to, you know, I mean, the demographic was going to be all Jackson 5. So I put a band together. That's the band that's playing on the Temptations version of Papa Was a Rollin Stone. Unless he got some of the Funk Brothers in there, because Norman went and overdub and did some other things in there. But that's my band playing on the Temptations version of Papa Was a Rolling Stone, when it turned into Papa Was a Rolling Stone. And that band live, see, you know, at that time, the Jackson 5 had the little family band. We had these guys, Paul Warren on the white boy with white guitarist, and Robert Ward is the quintessential guitar player. And I had both of them and another guitar player, had 3, and Wawa, 4 guitar players on that tour. So you can imagine the power, and all these guys are creative in visual, you know. So the Jackson 5 would always be back on the side of the stage. When we on the stage watching the show, we'd be hearing all this screaming and hollering. We think they hollering, we look over there in the Jackson 5 stage. I was like, oh, okay, I don't know. But the folks weren't booing. They weren't trying to get us off of there. You know, so they really, because Wawa did a lot of, Wawa got gold and platinum albums with Michael. You know, Michael used Wawa, especially in that Off the Wall album, you know, and so he was always immersed about our band. And that's what he got that in his head. He said, I saw that band. He said that band was the difference. I wish we had that band. We just got Jermaine and the good drummer and the keyboard player. We had to go on with that big ass band. I mean, all these good guitar players and moving around and singing and doing almost pre Earth, Wind and Fire kind of vibe, but just rhythm. All rhythm. It was just all rhythm. And Norman had it tight. I mean, they're playing his tracks. So, you know, he had it tight. You know, all we had to do was go sing to it. And that worked for 90 days. We didn't have to change nothing. 90 days. I mean, all over the country, ended in Hawaii. We came out of Hawaii and went to the LA. That's the first time as a group we went to LA and recorded that before we moved there. We did The Girl You're All Right, a song that Clay McMurray wrote and produced.
Well, Joe, excuse me. So in that Cosmic period with the wigs and the look and everything, pretty impressive that you could stand out in Hollywood. You know.
So you know, that's why I said it to you. Said you lived there, so you know.
Yeah. But I want to actually mention the names of the albums because, you know, for folks that like funk, in some cases they might be sort of gems for people, you know, because it was a while ago, and you know, they know the hit You Plus Me, but they might not know these albums like Cosmic Truth and Higher Than High and Method to the Madness and Smoking. I, you know, urge people, if they haven't heard them, to go seek them out, because there's a lot of great folk music on those.
I mean, the two new girls, well, they've been together for almost 10 years now. And they was confessing when Brenda was coming in, they was confessing that, you know, they wanted to listen to the repertoire, and they started listening to some things, and some of the comments and the things, they was like, wow. You know, and one of the girls was saying, well, you know, it's very hard to concept. I said, because you're looking at a bunch of concepts. You can't judge the music, but when you put your head in the frame of, got to get my hands on some loving, and got this big in a hurry, and all these rock sounds. See, Norman had a friend who was managing Led Zeppelin. So when we started going into the rock thing, he was using us to go into, because he knew he had seen me do rock in the 20 grand before. I mean, I did a couple of songs that had rock overtones. And so when we got in the studio, he was just loving it, you know. And when we got in front of those crowds with them guitars swinging, and then at first we had Rolls Royce playing. If you ever see us on in concert with Taka and one without Taka on YouTube with Rolls Royce playing, they got veils over their heads. You can see them back there, but you don't see nobody's faces. It looked like a spider face with a bunch of eyes, because there's veils over them, because we didn't want to expose them before the movie came out, and they were going to be Rolls Royce. They was Undisputed Truth band. That was one of the George Clinton tricks that we was trying to get away from. You know, and said, well, Undisputed Truth and Rolls Royce is the same thing. Well, Norman didn't want to get into that. He didn't want to have that conversation. He said, all this is Norman Whitfield. And when George Clinton used to play, and they lived in Detroit. They was part of that. After I Want to Testify, they came to Detroit to live. In fact, George was here once before as a writer for Motown. So they moved to Detroit. So they was a part of all this conglomeration, and where the funk really from Detroit started really taking a big muck and a big muscle, you know, George Clinton.
Detroit sound.
Detroit sound. See, because I mean, you had those bass players here and them fat drummers. George could really get what he needed here, you know, and it's still here. It's just there's just not that place where everybody can go and you can say, okay. You're like, if you ever remember what was it, 57 Broadway, that remember the place in Broadway where the writers used to go to the Brill building or whatever the building is?
Right, yeah, Carole King and all them.
Yeah, you can go in there and you can listen and see all those folks in there. You do that in Detroit, you're going to earn it's a gold mine of talent. Barry came here a few months back. They were doing the Motown play, and they were getting ready to change the cast, and they had an open casting call here. And I sat here and watched a lot of it on TV, and the news happened to catch this little kid who was auditioning for Michael Jackson. I saw why the news got him, because he was tough. And at the end of the day, Barry took him home straight from here. He went to audition. I'm taking you going, his mama with him. We going to LA. He took him out of here. So I mean, and he said it many times. He said, "Look, I left and I didn't." He said, "I never had a year here to just that I couldn't find some new talent." He said the problem wasn't finding it in Detroit. He said I started getting it from here and there and putting it all in there. And then at one point in time, he said I really had too much. He said one of the things that and people hate, when you got a lot of folks and they're in a big conglomerate of a lot of other folks and they never get a chance to be heard. I'm hearing some things now that were recorded way back then. I was like, damn, that wasn't released. How you gonna get it? Where were you gonna release it? I mean, Motown had changed all them labels so that they can get all them songs out there, and you can do no more than that. You get Gordy, Pamela, Motown. soul, all those different labels had hits on them. You know, talent. Still here.
So, Joe, why did Undisputed Truth end its run? And I know you went on, among the other things you did afterwards, you did some vocals with George Clinton. And can you talk about why the group ended and what happened after?
The end came when all the black record companies were going down. We were about the last major black record company to go down. Isley Brothers, when the Isley Brothers went down, Norman told me, say, they're shutting us all down. Shutting down. No more black record companies. Too much competition. And those, and a lot of us think today that those were the reasons why all our top black artists are dead. When you don't have those folks and get somebody to create an entity and say, this is what I'm doing. It's going to be all black. I'm going to do a rhythm and blues thing with black. Then I want no more black record companies. Because first of all, none of us had distribution. So the only thing it could be was a production company. And your distribution deals have to go through the major white companies. So you never get the independence that you're looking for, because you're at bay for whatever it is going to cost you to do your business that way. Now, I know Prince was trying to do some things that may have been part of what happened with him. I know Michael talked about trying to do something. The only thing that was the stopgap was the distribution. The gangsters always owned the distributions, and they became legit. You can't get around it. How you going? You can't even get on the radio. They own the radios, so you don't hear no new music. They would say, "Well, we'd rather go and they recorded it to a certain extent because they didn't want it falling over into their genres. They always thought it was just going to be over there, and then it turned into something, to another thing that they can't control. The artists are mother get killed, go to jail, and it's just look for more of the negative than the positive. You found more positive in the eras from the early 50s and 60s and 70s, and then after when all that stuff started, it was always about some drama. Always, and then it got into the hoes and the money and the chains and all of that. It got off. It just went everywhere. Drugs and all of that kind of stuff. And to your question, that was, we knew what Norman told us, that he knew be long, and then he had a problem with Warner Brothers. Norman had deals with Warner Brothers and MCA, and for some reason he felt like that one was doing better than the other on purpose. One was not, was just slighting him, and it got down to some petty stuff about a check, big check that they sent Norman, and twice they sent him this check, and he went to the bank and they wouldn't cash it. The first time was because it had one signature, which required two. But they was doing that because Norman had pressed somebody, and them they going through the motions, and somebody didn't get another signature on that check, and they got to Norman. He sent somebody to the bank with it, and they sent it back. So Norman sent somebody over there to fix it. Somebody put a stop on the check, thinking that they was going to write another check. He just went over there and got the walked right into the signature. Got the signature, so when they went back to recash it, there's been a stop put on it. He blew up. He blew up. He thought somebody was fucking with him. Some just simple mistakes, and went over there and went busted in the president's Mo Austin's office. I was with him. I turned around and saw security running from everywhere. I turned around and started walking out the building. Norman was on fire. I mean, you heard a lot of motherfuckers, and you don't treat you motherfuckers. I ain't never treat. I gave y'all hit records, and you don't just treat me like a nigga and all that kind of stuff. Y'all over a goddamn $200,000 check. you know. So that put us out the door, you know. But we knew that they were shutting it all down. Somebody, one of Norman's attorney friends, had told him that was the plan. They shut down all of the black record companies. I mean, you know, major companies get together and they run the business, but they knew that the new era was coming. Music was going to change. And they were already starting to make the change. You know, as soon as after that, you start hearing about Death Row, Snoop Dogg, and all those kind of things. You know, so it was in decline. And what I did after we shut down, George Clinton was performing in Long Beach, and me and my partner went to the concert out there. And after the end of the show, George said, "Well, what you doing?" I said, "Well, Don Davis asked me to come back to Detroit to do some work for him." So he said, "Well, I'm gonna be in Detroit. I'm gonna be at United Sound." So we met up at United Sound. No, we didn't. When I got back, Don Davis made me a deal, and I had a part and run the whole studio. I ran a production part in there. I was producing a bunch of acts for him and some folks that I was working with. So he gave me the autonomy to be able to do that. Did a lot of produced a lot of folks for him. And George Clinton was in town doing some projects, but he wasn't there. I didn't know him and Don had a problem. So after I do things for Don, I go over there and do some stuff with George. And some kind of way that got back to Don, and Don Davis's brother came to me, Will, and said, "Look, we heard you working with George Clinton. Tell George Clinton we don't have no problem with him. He owes us. But if he's getting all these projects now, he can come back to United Sound, and instead of paying fresh money, pay on his bill." George ran over there. So we were in United Sound for 10 years. Red Hot Chili Peppers, Thomas Dolby, Otis Day, and we did so many folks. So at one time in those 10 years when I was working, we had 13 studios running at the same time, all over the country. Projects George was doing. And some of us would run to California and other Florida, Tennessee, places where George was working, New York, and most of us stayed in Detroit and went back and forth to California. Then we started getting film projects. Then we did the Tracy Harmon show. I got an Emmy for that. The very first Tracy Harmon show, when that started, we did the opening. Everybody on the floor, stand on God, getting ready for the show. Yeah. And me and my partner did the snippets for the Simpsons. You know, at the break of the show, they would go. You see them going across. They're not saying anything. You hear that look. And that would be the thing. We lived 5 years off of doing the snippets for the Simpsons before they talk. I mean, that money was so regular and so huge. You know, I was like, shoot, I could do this forever. We just 30 seconds. They use 15 of it, or they take it and edit it to whatever it was that they wanted to do. We just submitted it. We got an Emmy for the Tracy Harmon show, and we really fell out. A bunch of us fell out with George after that because we never seen the fruits of that. We understand, and one of the ladies told us about that they gave us a big gift package, Jacksons and all that. We never seen none of that. I mean, it was all about the work, you know, and the folks that I was working with at that particular time, and everybody was hungry. You know, we were working on it. I was very familiar with television from being in LA, like we were in Detroit. So I said, man, you don't take this lightly. I mean, this lady's fixing to get a TV show, and we're going. And they was begging for it. George wasn't in town. He had left. We had started, and he wasn't in town. And he called us back and said, "Look, they want that thing tomorrow, so y'all go in there and finish it." You know, and they don't want it mixed. Just send it. So we went in and finished it up, tightened it up, and sent it out the next day. They didn't do no. They played it like they got it. They didn't do no editing. They did raw funk. I mean, and I mean, it's bad. It's on YouTube. It's tough. The intro to the Tracy Ullman show. It is tough. And then we got those film parts, those film things. That was all. That was great. I mean, it was a lot of happiness and sadness because doing all those things, we lost quite a few of those folks. Jessica Cleage. I mean, we had some talented people working with us. I mean, George had a wild facade, but when it come to music and putting that music together, he had a very similar type of a concept that Norman did. Norman didn't rehearse anything. You got to play it, and then it started from there. All you need to hear is the beginning of the funk, and then you take it on the trip the way you want it to run. And wow,
that's just a great way to create, but it can't get expensive with the studio time.
See, and then the thing about George, when we were at United Sound, Don would give George the projects. We'd be in there all day and all night. We wasn't even on time. But when you're getting paid, pay on your bill. He had a bill, and he paid on his bill. And even after I left, George was still there for a long time. So that meant that as long as he paid, he was good. And every time he went into United Sound, he come out of there with a hit. So we did a lot of, we spent a lot of hours with Michael Henderson. I mean, wide receiver, all those things we did at the United Sound. George Clinton, we did some stuff with the Dramatics. Oh man, wow. That was the whole year.
That's very cool stuff. So, yeah. So Joe, want to try to start winding this down. Fantastic stories, man. What an incredible life you've led. So thanks for sharing so much of that. What are you doing? What are you doing now? How can folks keep up with you?
You keep up with me really basically now on Facebook. I'll be, anything that I have to say that would be, I wouldn't try to compete with the record company to keep the name alive. Right now, we want to Smiling Faces and all that era is what it is. And we're not scared with the folks that we got, and the new stuff is going to be funky that we're going to be coming with, and the concepts that we're going to be coming with, at this particular point in time in our career. But Facebook is a good way for you to keep up with us now, and we're working on some things now to have other avenues. So we'll be letting folks know from Facebook.
Fantastic, Joe. Thank you again for sharing so much time. Appreciate it. Great talking to you and hearing those old stories. And wow, hope to do it again.
Yeah, and that's what we was talking the other day, yesterday about Unsung. And right, just talking to you, I mentioned Jameson and those Earl Van Dyke, man, those guys were so wonderful. Yule Jones, Robert White, Eddie Willis, Johnny Griffin. And people have to realize that there were so many horn players that were funk brothers. But you got that rhythm, Jameson and all those guys. I mean, there's so many things and stories that we lived and can talk about. I mean, and I see some of the kids now. They say, "You'll never talk about my dad." So I hope some of these things I can ease some folks in there. It's just a lot of artists and things. People say, "Man, you mentioned me." I was back in that time. Like I just mentioned, Will Hatcher is picking me up now. We were stable mates way back in the Thelma and Mike Hanks days. And shit, he didn't grow up, and he did that. Working my way, one of those big hits with the Spinners, and he called me and said, "Man, I got 300 songs, man. I saw y'all on Facebook and y'all getting back together. We need to talk." And see, I'm looking for all this because that's what we're going to do here. McKinley Jackson, Clay McMurray, and a couple of others here. We're going to bring the funk back to Michigan, to Detroit. We're going to create a funk factory in Detroit. It's here. They just don't. I don't like to go in folks' houses to record. I don't like that. I just, for some reason, my creativity stopped at the front door. Mm. You're at somebody's house. I like to be in that room and know that everything in that room is about being creative. You know, not with somebody, who's that on the picture over there, that's the sign of the times. And all those things that I'm mentioning now aren't in Detroit for a particular reason. Because, I mean, they shut down some guys here. Mike Powell, he had a great situation here, but shut down. You know, I mean, city was dead for a long time. So it wasn't profitable for these guys that had these big rooms, and you don't have a record company, no more record company budgets. See, so today it's all standalone. So you have to be able to afford it. New Detroit, but we're going to open another door.
All right. Well, we'll look for that. We'll keep abreast of what's happening with Joe, and hopefully we'll have you back on Truth and Rhythm again. It's been a blast. Thank you so much. I want to remind viewers to, keep in touch with us at funkandstuff.net and other episodes on YouTube. For now, on behalf of Joe Pep Harris, the legendary lead singer from Undisputed Truth, one of the great funk and R&B bands of the 1970s, and all the work he's done subsequent, this is Scott, Dr. J.X. Goldfine. And on behalf of Joe, thank you again so much.
Scott and everybody, thanks, man. It's my pleasure. I talk too much now, remember that.
Well, I'm going to do my usual closing, which is on keep on vibrating to the rhythm of the one.
Gotcha.